So hello and welcome to this episode of the Angel Rated Show. I'm Angela Bryant and with me today I have Anuradha Kowtha. So Anuradha is a catalyst, an educator and consultant who works with individuals, small businesses and organisations to liberate their essence so they can meet these uncertain times with resilience and courage. So Anuradha's journey working across both public and private sectors has led to Anuradha to see the systemic issues like hierarchy and exploitation and find ways to address these systemic issues at their root cause. So Anuradha's work focuses on illuminating and liberating individuals and small teams from the indoctrination and cookie-cutter thinking that comes from capitalism and colonialism, so they can provide bold and innovative solutions rooted in justice to their clients. Now that is a big introduction, but we met a couple of months ago now through a lady called Marisa, and I just was really fascinated and interested in the work you're doing and what you're bringing to the world. So I wanted to have you on the conversation and just find out more about. So why don't you just start by telling us a bit about your story, a bit about how you came to be doing this work and where you came from, what led you to this?
Yeah, thank you. What an introduction. Thank you. I don't know where to start. A lot of things I have done, as you said in the bio, I have been both in the public sector, more in the public sector, and some in the private sector, and just keep seeing the same things. Actually, I started my work in environmental activism. I was actually working with New Mexico PIRG, so New Mexico Public Interest Research Group, and we were working on water. We had a campaign around water loopholes that developers were using to create more subdivisions that didn't have to have metered water in a desert environment like New Mexico. So that's where I started, but I went into, I was a school teacher for many years, high school science teacher and so on. And then I moved into doing my master's work, and I had an opportunity to look at the impact the British had in colonialism in India in a very specific area in this specific dance form. And that kind of was a really healing moment because I got to look at patriarchy and colonialism and so on. And it was such a healing point in my life. And from then I was like, oh, I need to bring more of this into the work I do in the classroom. I need to, what's missing from the environmental movements is this lens. So wherever I would try something or do an internship or whatever, because I like to, I'm a butterfly in terms of I like a lot of experience, I like to network, I like to connect. I just kept coming back to, oh, if we don't dismantle this at the root, this is where we keep finding the same situations where, like I said, cookie cutter thinking, that we can't get past that. We can't get to something new and innovative. We can't access the indigenous wisdom. We can't do so many things because we're limited by this thinking.
So that brought in some of your thinking around sort of colonialism and the issues that came with that. Mm-hmm. Where this interest in sort of post-capitalism, where does that come from, and how do you bring that into your work?
That's a good question. I think the interest in looking at the root, when we're talking about the root of all of this, the root is capitalism and colonialism. First, it started here in Western Europe. So the idea of the enclosures, many of us maybe in Europe maybe talked about it, learned about it. I didn't. I'm from the US, but that was part of the insidious nature of let's close off land that was public, freely used for public use. And so we can start to see, oh my gosh, this specific use of propaganda, the benefit system that we see now was all first envisioned here and perfected, and then we took it abroad with different mechanisms of what we now call colonialism to extract and exploit.
So this is obviously, it's a massive topic, and it clearly now drives everything that you're doing in your business and in the Kowtha constellation, which is your business. So where do you want to take that? I mean, have you got a legacy you want to create? Have you got a big vision for where you want to take your business and the work that you're doing?
I I have so many visions. I have too many visions. That's really the thing. I would like to do so many things. And to be honest, the tension I often bump up against is being in a disabled body, being, neurodivergent. I often run out of capacity to do my big vision. So that's kind of the thing of how can I balance these two. And some of my vision is making sure this information is in more people's hands, right? So we can actually understand the roots of it, because we can't help to like bring up the whole thing if we're not looking at the roots, if we're not looking at how it is impacting it, even in us. Like a lot of us say, oh, okay, it's not white supremacy. I'm not racist, or I'm not, I'm not. And it's like, no, these things live in us. Like actually how propaganda and indoctrination works is it comes into the way we do, the way we think, the way we be in the world. So we need to examine that. So that's one piece of it. I also have an idea at some point to create, with Sowing Post-Capitalist Seeds, some more training, some more useful things that businesses could be using it, because what we're going to be talking about today, Sowing Post-Capitalist Seeds, is a foundation course that we recommend everyone to take. But we want to create some more specific business trainings. And then I have a media company kind of that I think is coming out of all of this, where we can actually learn how my master's is in rhetoric. So how do we actually use media to influence, to change minds and hearts, right? How can we do that? And how can we do that with the decolonial lens? Because so many times I want to tell my story, and if I want to find South Asian images, I mostly have to B-roll footage or images. I am looking at white gaze, colonial gaze in the images that are in my selection. And I'm like, I would like to tell my own story, and I don't have access to these things. I'm limited to tell the story in the way that white gaze or these kinds of things show up, right? That those things, those tropes tell our story. So I want to play in the media space. I don't know how it's going to look right now.
But it's great to have that idea and that ambition and that vision for where you want to go. So you mentioned Sowing Post-Capitalist Seeds. So this is the course that you've developed, and you've got another intake of it coming up in September. So we titled this sort of Sowing Post-Capitalist Seeds in Your Business, because there's a lot of online business owners here who might be watching this. So tell us what that course is about and what it means to sow post-capitalist seeds in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. First, about the course, it's not just my creation. It was co-created by my partner and I, business partner, co-facilitator Mariah Helms. And we started basically, it was really amazing how we even met. I was at the time working on kind of an Asian and Pacific Island space where we could kind of do our reclaiming journey. And she is a yoga teacher, and she said she wanted to give a percentage of her profits or her earnings from yoga to support someone who is South Asian to get the support with me. So that's how we first met. She wanted to just have my PayPal so she could send some monthly amount to me. And I said, well, if you're going to send money, I would like to get to know you. And we started talking, and maybe we spoke every week. And then we started developing this curriculum. First, we said, oh, is it cultural appropriation? And we kept digging. Is it this? Is it anti-racism? No, keep digging. And we were like, oh, no, capitalism is the underpinning of this. And that's where we started this course. So this is the 6th time we'll be teaching it. And every time we have different people, and we want to keep that, sharpening the saw. We bring in new speakers, or we try to bring in new fresh perspectives, because we are also continuing to learn and unpack. And it's a 14-week foundation course that anybody can take. And we've had people who are teachers, who are students, who are disabled, who are underemployed or unemployed taking it. We've had online business owners, we've had nonprofit owners, you name it, a lot of artists, so many different types of people. And we really look at, the political, economic, socio-political, the different lenses of how we can look at anti-oppression work. And the first part of the class is looking at the roots of how capitalism and colonialism came to be, and really not just in an intellectual way, but what is the meaning of that on our bodies? Because that is a big part of this, the interpersonal, the personal, the embodiment of how these things impact us. And then the second part of the journey is we look at different ways we can look at money, land ethic, mutual aid, the body, so many topics. And we start to come up with our own praxis within community. How do we now change our mind around our own land ethic or our money ethic? Because when we start to see, oh, there's a mutual aid piece that we need to be considering, or, so on, we look at other movements that are going on. So it's a really rich course that is like, we don't want people who are just beginning their journey in terms of, it's not an anti-racism 101 or an anti-oppression 101. We want people who've done a little bit of work. And then we really create this really good foundation of, now from here, I can start to see possibilities. Like, because colonialism and capitalism live in our bodies like trauma. And so if we're not, and this, I'm not a therapist or anything, so I don't want to make any claims in that, but the trauma does live in our body. And what most people say about the course is, oh, I can be in my body now. I can see possibilities that I couldn't see before. Like before, I just thought, oh, this is like, oh, capitalism is amalgamous. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to name it. I don't know how to relate to it. We're already relating to capitalism, whether or not we want to or know about it. But people will say, oh, they have this new perspective. They have this new way of looking at things, and they start to create these possibilities. They can lean into the possibilities that they couldn't even see before. And they can see, oh, I might have been actually doing the right things. Now I know I have some steps, or I have some community supporting me that maybe they didn't feel they had before.
It just sounds so, I mean, I know you called it a foundation course, but it sounds so interesting to just keep peeling away all those layers and looking down right into those seeds to really understand that capitalism is the thing that has underpinned a lot of those issues, and then really unpacking that to understand the impact it's had on you, on individuals, on other people. So if someone was an online business owner or, an entrepreneur of some sort, and they took this course, what sort of impact, because they're obviously working in a capitalist world because they are a business owner. So yes. How would that then work? What impact might the course have on how they see doing business and how they structure their business or how they operate their business? Is it something they should be scared of or, run towards? Or is it more intellectual exercise, or will it just really change things about how they operate? So many questions.
So many questions, big questions too. And I love it. I kind of wanted to focus in on a kind of a small case study that we had business owners who are course creators who took our class, and they both took it as they signed up and took the same round together. So they went through the material together. And I presume they also had discussions besides our 14 weeks together. They also had some discussions of their own. And, that they before that didn't feel like they were on the same footing about how radical their material needed to be, their political stance, how do they set things up in an accessible way. So they weren't matching in terms of maybe having slightly different foundations they were resting on. Taking this course together showed the possibility, showed something new, that before there was this dissonance to some degree. And they said afterward they came together, they felt that it saved their business relationship because they were both coming at it from the same place, and they are innovating the heck out of how do they now do really alternative pricing. So that was a place. How do they deliver services? What's the equity within their own business working relationship? So a lot of that money ethic has shown up. And because of the pandemic, they were able to agree to some pricing that would support their community, and opening it up for different types of capitalism, i.e. not just payments, opening it up to pay what you can models. That's not the only way that a company can become more accessible, but that was the way they chose to embody that. And so I think that's the thing that is surprising to us, that time after time we get comments on the embodiment factor of, I can live in my body, I can now live in my body and relate to other people. So that's a big one that we get a lot of. And then this community, we didn't plan to have a community, but the people who show up and they connect, and they really, some people really become really good friends or so on. And we try to do, we're starting to introduce an annual retreat or an annual conversation, a reunion of sorts once during the summer. So our reunion for anybody who's taken any of the previous 5 rounds, we're going to be having in a week or so.
That really sounds like there's an impact the course has on you as a person, your body, your beliefs, your understanding, how you live in your own body, and then that has then ripples or knock-on effects and makes you think about probably different areas of your life, not just your business, but then it could also have an impact on how you work and how you, pricing models, or how you choose suppliers, how you choose staff, how you make your business more accessible, how you make it more just or equitable in different ways.
That's correct.
So, and I know I'm always really interested in getting to know the people behind courses and sort of what their values are. And obviously your values come out incredibly strongly in what you're offering. And I know in your pricing, you have specific offers, you have tiered pricing. Talk us through how that works, because I think there's also some sort of a different pricing for Global South, and there's sort of, other ways that you're offering things. So give us some examples of what you do with your pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we started the course at $300 a few years ago, and we've now, as we started to understand,
which I have to say, for 14 weeks seems incredible low price.
It was only 12 weeks then. We actually since then added 2 weeks. We added a body week, and we added a week on colonialism specifically. So we've expanded. We've actually brought in some guest speakers. So the extra tiers help us now pay for the guest speakers. We want to be paid a living wage as much as possible.
So sorry, I interrupted you. Explain your tiers.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's all right. You're excited. I'm excited. It's good. So now the tiers start at, so we've kept that as the $300 is the minimum tier. And then we also have a number of tiers going up to $900. I mean, with the exchange rate, we charging in pounds just to make that clear, and so on. And so the exact numbers in pounds are on the website. I will let people read that, or on your Angel Rated site. But we also, this time I said it was necessary because we've had people interested from the Global South, and 2 or 3 times we heard last year, hey, I want to join, but the amount I make in my whatever X currency is just not at the level that I can afford it in your currency. So we created a new tier for pay what you can for people from the Global South. And so I think we've already had a couple people interested in that. That's amazing. And then we have 2 people of scholars, Black, Indigenous, people of color scholarships. I guess here in the UK, we use the term BAME, but similar, right? Since we have a global audience, we chose that language. And then we also do 2, it depends, but at least we'll have 2 work trades. And that is somebody who can help us by doing labor for us in exchange for the entry to the course. So that generally is some sort of administrative work or something special, like a special project we need some, some hands-on help with.
And that's an
So
idea I'd never had come across before. That was like, I mean, I've seen it in, I don't know, things like woofing and like people just volunteering and getting an exchange for their labour, bed and board or something. But I've not seen it in the online business space. So that's quite, really interesting way of offering something, a different way of doing a pricing model.
yeah, I love that. Woofing is a great model because it shows people, I mean, it can also become exploitative. So we have to be careful, right? Because I've heard of woofers having not great experiences, but similar here, if we set up the container of what is expected, it's a good way to do it because not everyone has access. And
Yeah.
so our goal is each round, we want to make it a little bit more accessible. So we didn't start out with the closed captioning and so on. We added that in. And then we started a lending library. So some of the books we use, Sylvia Federici's Caliban and the Witch. I don't have my copy here today, but we use that in the book in the course. So we have 4 copies in the US that Mariah has, and I have a copy here that we can lend out. So and people have added other books to our stash that we might reference. We don't use them by and large, but they're optional reading. So some people will check out a book for the semester.
Fantastic. So if people wanted to learn more about this, tell us where they would go, how they would get involved. What would their next step be?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, Sowing Post-Capitalist Seeds finally has its own website. That was just a few months ago that is now a reality. And now it lives at www.sowingpostcapitalistseeds.com and // course is where you can find it.
Fantastic. And people then apply to join the course and
yes,
check out their application.
That's right. We have an extensive application. We don't want that to deter people. This is not like there's not a right or wrong answer. There's not like we're not ranking or anything like that. We want to know if you've done the work because we might find, if people haven't done as much work, we want to keep a closer eye on them in the class in terms of, let's say anti-racism work. It's a mixed race space. It's a mixed ability space. So we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on certain people. People can apply orally or submit their application in another format if they would like. And then we review it, and we haven't not accepted anybody. We're generally, and this time we've opened it up to all genders. So anybody can apply, and we might flag certain things when we kind of respond to you to make sure, hey, are these things going to be set up, or what are your access needs, right? So we want to make sure we're covering as much as we can. And then and we start September 12th in just a few weeks.
And who would you, if you had to describe the sort of ideal, is there an ideal person that would get the most out of it, or that would be, that it's great for, or is it? I mean, I know you've opened it to everyone, but is there someone who would you describe as being somebody who would get the most out of it?
Yeah, well, since we're speaking about business and business owners here, in terms of business owners, it's people who have been kind of questioning, how do I bring social justice? How do I bring a different money ethic, or like rooted, like justice-oriented solutions to my business, right? Because here the thing is, people think, oh, I have to now pivot and start talking about anti-racism to do my business. I don't think that's the way it needs to be. There is a way to embody anti-racism or anti-colonialism or anti-capitalism in your business in such a way that you don't need to now change what you're doing. You maybe change the how. Like you said, we might look at your supply chain and say, who is actually where's the money going, right? Am I putting it back in the hands of the historically disenfranchised or not? Am I lifting them up? Or maybe that's actually not a good model for me, right? Because some people say, oh, I want to let everyone into my class, and then they, want to invite people of genders they're not necessarily used to working with, or, making it a mixed race space. And they bring in people, and then it's like this tokenism, and they're not necessarily ready to handle it. So if you're on the fence, like, hey, how do I embody this ethic in a new way? Because quite frankly, I feel like, and statistics are showing this, to be actually, you know, like, people are losing business because they are not embracing anti-oppressive work in their business. So it's prime time we get on board with that, I think, across the board.
Yeah.
And here in the UK and Europe, I see that we are behind the conversation of what's going on in the US. I mean, so many of us have commented on that. So if you're just a beginner in those ways, it's a great place to have that conversation, maybe for the first time, some of these conversations for the first time, and say, oh, I haven't realized that, I haven't had a chance to unpack it. So because as you said earlier, we can't go to this place of, first we start here, and then we maybe start moving outward in concentric circles around us.
But it sounds,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's what you've created is a really safe space to do that thinking, do that learning, and then start understanding and thinking about how you can apply that learning to your business, for example, in innovative ways. And it's not a one size fits all. It's not a, you have to go and plaster this all over your website. It's very much thinking about different ways of doing things, what might work for you and your business. And
that's right.
So that you
because that one size fits all thing can be really hard. Like, that's not going to work, right? Me in a disabled body and a neurodivergent body, that's not the same experience or the same ethic that I can bring that you do in your business. You have different things you can leverage perhaps that I can't, and vice versa. So we need to we actually have activities that can help you tease some of those out with a little bit more nuance.
Fantastic. Before we wrap up, because we've been going for quite half an hour, I think, so is there anything else you want to share about the work you're doing or about sowing post-capitalist seeds?
The thing that I would say is, if this program resonates with you, awesome, we'd love to have you. And if this program doesn't resonate and there's someone else doing something else, do that. I'm not, like, as a teacher, I'm really not attached to you doing it with me in my way. I want you to find spaces that support you in your journey where you are. But the thing is, we can't allow this to keep going, right? The thing is, we all urgently need to take action, because the environmental situation, all of the things that are going on in the world, it's all related back to capitalism. So we need to be dismantling it where we can. So do that work, please. If you do it with us, awesome. And if you don't do it with us, also awesome. Right?
As long as you do it, as long as you start thinking of making. Well, I've definitely learned an awful lot, and I'm so interested in, I love what you're doing. I'm really wanted to, I know we've sort of been quite brave doing something that neither of us have done much of or before, but hopefully having this live conversation is, getting the word out to more people, and we can share what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us. To read the show notes from this episode, go to angelrated.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd love you to subscribe to the show and leave a review on your favourite podcast platform. And don't forget to share this episode with your online business friends and let everyone know about Anuradha's course.